right, finally talking about this. Yeah, it came out like, what, August 6th, so like 3 months ago almost, but it's cool, right? I saw it the other night in US theaters. It was the Japanese, was the subtitle version I saw. I've been really pumped to talk about it. Yesterday I had to do the review, obviously, but today we're talking about it. And I know with chapter 960 that we just got, there's a lot of stuff to unpack there with Odin and Denjiro and the past of Wano and everything like that. We'll get to that, but I need to talk about this right now, okay? You understand that? Do you understand that, Barry? First complaint I'm gonna throw out right out of the way. This movie had a very strict no brick policy, which I know, that's BS, isn't it, right? So Barry unfortunately could not attend. I went. The nearest theater where it was playing was about 2 hours away, so that sucked. When I went to go see the Broly movie, that came out, that was like one of my local theaters that had that back in January, and I'm thinking, oh great, the anime films are finally getting way more of a wide release than they typically do, and I was expecting, Stampede to be in my local theater, but no, it was about 2 hour drive. So it's fine though. I drove out there, I met a lot of really cool people. I met a lot of fans, as you can imagine. I walked into the theater and sat down, and I just kind of like waited, and I could see like a few people like turning their heads like, wait, is that he's like, yep, hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. There's a guy behind me, there was a guy right next to me. I'm like, hi, nice to meet you, how you doing? Met a lot of really cool people, so the experience was great on that end. Plus the movie theater was inside of a mall, and this mall in particular was the Monroeville Mall in Pennsylvania. It's actually the mall where they filmed Dawn of the Dead back in the 70s, but I love that mall. I don't get to go down there very often because it's kind of far from where I live, but that mall is freaking boss. I love going down there just for that reason alone, okay? But, so the movie itself, was it worth the drive? Yes, 100%. This movie, considering it's the 20th anniversary of the anime, this movie is a love letter to all One Piece fans, okay? I would definitely not recommend seeing this if you've never seen One Piece before, or if you were just like, man, there's this interesting One Piece movie playing at my local theater, I will go check it out. I've never heard of, I mean, you probably heard of One Piece, but you've never, like, seen it before. This would not be a good movie just to sit down and watch. You'll probably still feel the adrenaline rush, but it's just, like, there's so much, background characters and references and callbacks to various things throughout the story that, it's gonna all fly over your head. Even myself, I'm sitting there, and as a guy that's, seen the entire series, every episode of the anime, I own the entire manga all the way up to like the most recent English release, and of course I review it on a weekly basis. I'm sitting there and I'm looking through all the cast of characters, and a lot of times they flash by really quick. Like, there's scenes of Hachi and Kami running like their takoyaki stand, but they go by like that. They probably have like less than like a second or two of screen time at the beginning because they kind of just flash over everything. Most people probably figure from the trailer, the big event that's going on in this movie is this pirate fest, this huge festival that's taking place on this island. So all the pirates from all over the world are gathering together. The Supernovas are there, like the Foxy pirates are there, whoop-de-woo. Cavendish is there, Bartolomeo's there, Wapple was there, which, that was, okay, listen, it's a callback to so many things in the One Piece story. Wapple was the main villain of the Drum Island arc, so that's the reason he's thrown in there. But I'm sitting there watching it, and my little sense has to pick up, and I'm like, well, it makes no sense for Wapple to be there. He didn't even want to be a pirate to begin with. He wanted to be a king. Why would he is a king again. Why would Wapple be there? But it's just like, that kind of stuff does not, didn't bother me in the sense of the movie, in the grand scope. I'm just sitting there like, yeah, Wapple, it doesn't make sense for him to be there, but okay, he's there, he's cool, right? He's got the ship and everything, the Blick King, the Tin Tyrant or whatever. That's neat. Got to see all the ships of the Supernovas. That was really sweet. So to say that this whole movie is on crack, would be a fair assessment, I think. Yeah, that's probably very accurate. Most of this movie is just a fight, just a big fight against the big bad Douglas Bullet, who is a big guy, and he can get even bigger because he has the Clank Clang fruit that allows him to merge with mechanical objects to make a mech suit. In this case, he combines with his ship called the Catapult, which is like a submarine sort of deal, so he combines with that to make like a giant robot mech suit, and then he uses this power, which is an awakened devil fruit ability, to absorb all these other ships and all these other machines on the island, and he becomes basically a kaiju, the size of a damn mountain. This guy is, and this is obviously done in CG, like, you know, the CG of like him sending out his power, like it's very obvious CG. But when he becomes the giant kaiju like machine monster, like God's like Mecha Godzilla, but that's not really accurate because he's not really a dragon, but he's like this giant mechanical behemoth giant. The CG they use on him is different from the CG they used in the rest of the movie that you can just see throughout. I couldn't really put my finger on it. There were actually some times when the giant was moving around and you see all the metal and like the steel, like rebar and the screws and all the twisted, you know, steel that's keeping this thing together. I was actually wondering if they were taking like actual like images of like real life objects and like digitizing them into this being. And I don't think they did it that way, but the CG looks really good on it is what I'm trying to get across here. There's like this constant like smoke and dust like billowing off this creature. It really does look like a demon that just like dragged its way up from hell. This giant behemoth that's just, I will end your life. So that's pretty cool. Douglas Bullitt himself, in terms of character motivation and like what his goal is and everything, and his personality, not really much to go on there. And you know, like, given the fact that most of this movie is just, as I said, a big fight, just to see, like, all right, we're going to get the supernovas, they're all going to fight against this guy, and then we're going to get, like, Sabo, Crocodile, Boa Hancock. By the way, there's a scene with Hancock I need to talk about. Barry, do not let me forget that scene with Hancock, all right? But, you know, they're all there. You know, so I did get kind of flashbacks to the first Broly movie, the legendary Super Saiyan, like from the 90s, because Broly in that movie was just like, I'm this really strong musclehead that's gonna beat the crap out of all of you, you know, and he beats the crap out of Goku and Piccolo and Gohan and everybody there, right? So I will give it to him. Douglas has a little bit more to go on than Broly did in that first rundown, just because in the first movie, Broly was like, I hate Goku or Kakarot because he cried next to me in a freaking crib, you know? Douglas's backstory is has a little bit more weight than that, but at the end of it, it all really just boils down to, like, Douglas Bullitt was, you know, he's like, I don't need friends. I'm gonna get strong by myself. I don't need to have to worry about other people weighing me down or whatever. I'm gonna become the strongest on my own. My strength isn't to protect other people. My strength is just to, you know, further my own power and, you know, my own greatness. And he says this multiple times in the movie, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm sitting there in the theater, I'm like, all right. I've seen this before, like, a lot. That's pretty cliche, and you can see where it's going. You know, it's just like, okay, so we have this one guy who's clearly the villain that doesn't need friends and only cares about his own power and thinks that that's gonna be good enough, going up against Monkey D. Luffy, a man that loves his friends and a man that, you know, wants to become king of the pirates, you know, with his friends assisting him and everything, going on this great adventure. I wonder who's gonna win in that fight. You know, going by typical shonen logic, I wonder who's gonna win in that fight. Now, here's the thing. Douglas Bullitt's backstory is actually pretty interesting. So, he was raised in this country, this war-torn land, and he became this really he became a hero, basically, because he became this really powerful, like, super soldier that was, like, you know, fighting in this battle and, like, ended this huge war that was going on for years. And Douglas Bullitt, at a young age, he ended it, right? And so eventually he goes up against Roger, and we don't get to see Roger and Bullitt fight in the movie. We just kind of see a scene where he's like, Douglas Bullitt's on the ground. They're fighting on top of the Oro Jackson, and Douglas is on the, you know, the deck, and he's beaten, and Roger's just kind of standing over him, and he's like, I'll take you on any time, Bullitt. Join my crew. And so the basic idea here is that he grew up in this country where he was all alone, he was by himself, you know, or people were only using him as a means to an end, you know, soldiers in a war or whatever. So that's interesting. That's something you could build up there. And then eventually he found himself on the Roger crew, and then Roger showed to be one of the only people that were stronger than him, strong enough to beat him down. And you can kind of get the idea that Douglas Bullet was like, okay, well, you know, maybe I can have friends. Maybe I can trust these people, you know? And he traveled with the Roger crew and everything. And then eventually, of course, they find Laugh Tale, and eventually Roger gets executed, and Bullet gets imprisoned and impelled down level 6 for like 25 years. And so he probably feels at this point like, all right, well, I tried to have friends at one point and people I could trust, my allies, and that failed, and they all left me and they're not around anymore. Roger's dead. Everybody else is scattered to the wind. It's all me. I gotta do this all for me now. There is an interesting story there. I mean, even that kind of, you know, it's been done before, but, you know, you can make something work from that. It's just that we don't really get to hear this from Bullet's perspective. Bullet, in a lot of respects, is really just, you know, quiet, you know, really strong, crazed dude that just buffs up and just beats the crap out of the main cast. You know, we never have really a moment where Bullet, it happens near the end when he's getting the final beatdown by Luffy, where Bullet kind of flashes back to Roger a little bit, but it's just like, we don't get to hear a lot of this from his perspective and stuff. Like, that stuff I just told you, that stuff's implied, but we never get to hear about it. You know, it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. So that's what I'm going to go with to give Bullet a little bit more. But really, at the end of the day, this was just like, we're going to come up with this really strong character, and, you know, we're going to have to keep throwing all these popular One Piece characters at him. And then eventually, you know, it's going to be this big epic final battle where he's this huge kaiju creature, and then Luffy's going to get the final attack. And you can imagine how the final lines of this is going to go. Like, I don't need anyone. He's like, you can't become Pirate King like that. And then boom, boom, boom. And then Luffy wins, right? It's a lot more, you know, drawn out than that. And I'm overlooking the fight choreography and how cool all that was. We'll get to that in a mo. But just in terms of the villain itself, I felt like, yeah, the villain of the movie was kind of the weakest part of the movie. All right. Now, the secondary villain, which in the trailer, his name was Bueno Festa, which awesome name. And he's a dude with an afro that's basically because Douglas Bullet, you know, he's not the kind of guy that's really good at the theatrics. You know, he's not the kind of guy that's going to, like, you know, set up a festival by himself, right? So Buena Festa is the guy that kind of recruits him. He's sort of the brains of this operation, and he's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. The plan of this, the villains, is like Bueno Festa and Douglas Bullet are going to work together. They're going to set up this pirate festival. All of the pirates, all of the strong pirates from all over the world are going to gather at this festival, and then the ancient treasure that Roger apparently left in this island, you know, years back, is going to reveal itself at this point during the festival. Douglas Bullet is going to retrieve this treasure, whatever it is. We're going to find out what it is. And then he's going to defeat all the other strong pirates on the island, kind of luring all the other. So he has the means to find the One Piece. And then all these strong pirates are there. Douglas Bullet beats down all these strong pirates, gets rid of his competition, and then he alone has the key, the means to find Laugh Tale and locate the One Piece. It's kind of it's kept in suspense a little bit throughout the movie exactly what's in the treasure chest, what is in Roger's treasure that he apparently hid on this island. There's one point, a really cool scene where Douglas is just like, right here in this treasure chest is the One Piece itself. And Luffy, of course, is like, and everyone else is like, and everyone in the theater is like, and so they open up the chest, though, and it turns out it's not the One Piece itself, but it's a eternal pose to Laugh Tale. And this is where we find out, by the way, exactly how it is written in English, because on the eternal pose, it is written in English, Laugh Tale. So I'm sure Oda was definitely part of that. I'm sure they definitely contacted Oda, like, how do you actually want us to write this down on the pose? And Oda was like, all right, yeah. There was an interview where Oda talked about how he would not usually allow the plot of this movie to go forward unless it was something really special, and of course this is something really special. It's the 20th anniversary. But he's like, yeah, if this was not the 20th anniversary of One Piece anime, I would not allow this plot to go forward. And I'm thinking that was probably part of the reason why, if not the entire reason why. Because, you know, this is probably stuff that Oda was waiting to reveal until the end game. Like, Oda probably, right now in Oda's office, he probably has like a whole folder just filled with like information on Laugh Tale and the One Piece and what's it going to be, and it's like kept kept in a locked safe. You know, he has like, you know, thumbprint retina scanner, and you have to make sure. He probably has all this information, and so he's probably also very tight-lipped about it. He's not going to reveal this information, and so even when they were making this movie and they're like, we're going to have an eternal pose to Raftel or Laftel, how do you want us to spell it on the eternal pose? You know, Oda is like, ooh, okay, you guys are beep, 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 zine, welcome, Eiichiro Oda. All right, you're going to spell it, you know, laugh tail. That's all you're getting. Lock the freaking thing. I guarantee you in a few years when we finally get to the actual island in the manga, it's probably going to be spelled in the exact same way. So this is the first reveal. So that was a great. I mean, if nothing else, the stakes for this are definitely big. You know, it's not just like Roger left some treasure on this island. And it's like, oh, what's the treasure going to be? And it's like, oh, you know, it's just like a lot of gold and silver the Pirate King collected over the years. Like, no, they make this, you know, they make this high stakes. It's like, no. This is literally a compass that points you directly toward the island, which is the end game and the namesake for this entire damn manga. All right, so when it comes to that, they brought the A game there, okay? Now, what's this log pose or eternal pose even doing on this island? How did it even come into existence? You know, and the way they get to it is insane. All the pirate crews gather together in the center of this island. This island is laid out like 3 different sections broken apart by rivers. So it's like island number 1, island number 2, island number 3, and then there's like rivers dividing like a Y shape going right into the center, and there's like a giant lake right in the center of it, okay? So the way that this gets all kicked off is a knock-up stream just erupts from this central lake and just boom into the sky. So like I said, there's gonna be references all throughout this movie to like we see characters, we see Mozu and Kiwi from Water 7 there. Like I said, we see Hachi and Kami from Fishman Island and Sabaody. We see Bubbles, like the knock-up stream gets knocked up, so that's a reference to Jaya and Skypiea. And then Bubbles up here, and there's a giant island encased in a bubble, so that's a representative of like Sabaody and Fishman Island with the bubbles. We get references back, and Buggy's there, so you know, references to the East Blue are there. You know, Smoker and Tashigi are there. So many references throughout the whole story. I mean, I couldn't say them all right here. But we get to see this knock-up stream erupt, and so all the ships, they have to try to get to the top of the knock-up stream, arrive on this island. On that island, there's a cliff. On top of the cliff, there's a ship. Not sure what ship it is, whose ship it was. It's not the Oro Jackson or anything like that, so that's not that ship, but it's like a wrecked ship, and there's treasure all over the ship, and then there's a chest in center of the treasure, and then inside that chest is the gold, the log pose to Raftel. So it's like, all right, so first you have this epic scene where all these ships and the supernovas are all trying to get up the freaking knock-up stream. Frankie reveals the new secret mechanism of the Thousand Sunny, the flying mode, which turns it into a penguin called the Emperor Penguin. So there's penguin wings, which is funny because penguins can't even fly, so I think that's the joke. But there's like this little penguin mask that it goes over the Sunny's figurehead, so that's really funny, like these like poofy cheeks. It's just like, go Sunny, Emperor Penguin Modu! So they fly up, of course, the Straw Hats just erupt, you know, because the Thousand Sunny is awesome, so that's their moment in the spotlight. The Sunny arrives at the island. Shortly after this, all the other Supernova ships arrive. That's something I wanted to bring up just as a reference. I did a video talking about all the different ship designs for the Supernovas, like X-Drake's is the Liberal Hind, and the Stay Tuned, that's a Pooh ship. What are the other ones I can remember right off the top of my head? Hawkins was the Hawkins had like a German name. Obviously the Nostra Castello was Beiji's. I can't remember all the ship names off the top of my head, but that's fine. So they all land there right after the Sunny, basically, and it's actually kind of crazy because you get to see the difference of size. Because the Sunny lands on this island, there's like a little pond on this island the Sunny lands on, and then boom, every other Supernova ship lands, and their ships are like galleons compared to like the Sunny. So I thought that was a really great moment where it's like, yeah, the Straw Hats really are this really tiny crew, and their ship is awesome, but it's pretty small, and then boom, all these other ships, all the contemporary like the Supernova ships just land, and they're like, the size difference is immense. Like, this is like the Sunny right here, and then this is like Kid's ship right here. Like, it's huge. Alright, so it's just like, well, you know, I guess size doesn't particularly matter in this case, you know what I'm saying? Alright, so they get on the island and they start making a break for the castle. This is some really cool moments because we get to see Luffy square up against the other supernovas. We get to see Apu show up and does his music devil fruit powers against Luffy. Beiji's there with his ship. He uses, his little tank shreds thing. Kid's doing his thing. We have an awesome moment between Killer and Zoro. They clash. Eventually, the person that ends up getting to the top of the castle, or not the castle, but the top of the ledge to find the chest, is actually Buggy. Buggy's the first person to get his hands on it. He opens it up, and of course, Buggy knows exactly what it is. So he sees it right away, and he's like, oh, what's this doing here? What? And then the whole island at that moment, the bubble bursts and the entire island begins just to get crushed and fall down. And so that's going down. Meanwhile, while that's happening, the crew separates at one point. You had Chopper, Brook, and Sanji and Robin head off to try to figure out what's going on in the underground of the festival. Because Law's here as well, except Law is not hanging out with the rest of his crew, and he's not participating in the game. Law was sort of like undercover. He was like a detective trying to figure out what's going on with the festival. And you get to see him all battered and like wounded at the beginning of the movie, and he gets onto the Sunny, and he tells the Straw Hats, like, you guys gonna get out of here. Festa, he's a madman, he's gonna kill us all. So we need to get out of here. But of course, the Straw Hats are like, no, we'll help you. We're gonna figure out what's going on here. So Robin and Sanji, Chopper, Brook, and Law, they all go down into the underground of the festival to try to discover what's going on there. They bump into Smoker, who's also undercover for the Marines. He's examining the festival. We get a pretty good, a decent fight, actually. It's not just like a quick clash. It's a decent fight between Sanji and Smoker, which, okay, I was sitting there in the theater, I'm just like, okay, Sanji and Smoker fight. I mean, they've never fought before. All right, let's see where this goes. So Sanji's doing Diablo Jambe, and meanwhile Smoker's like caught like Brook and Chopper in his smoke, and then they start clashing, and that goes on for a decent amount of time, actually. So yeah, if you ever wanted to see some Sanji action in this movie, go ahead. That's the other thing I will bring up is the Straw Hats do get, like, individual, they do get a moment to show off a big epic attack, and they get a moment, but unlike, like, film, Z, for example, where they're all on the battlefield there, and even film Gold, where they all kind of have a moment where they have an opponent to fight, in this movie, it's really not that case. Frankie fires off one radical beam in the movie, which is actually blue now, so it looks like a Kamehameha. It looks like he's just firing off a Kamehameha, which is great, because you could see Frankie doing that. Frankie gets off one radical beam. Nami uses a Zeus once. Usopp is actually really integral in this movie. And you know what? Let's just go through the rest of the Straw Hats there. Brook gets a few moments with Soul Solid. He freezes some debris that's about to fall down on Luffy and Usopp. And he uses his soul form a few times, but beyond that, not really much from Brook in terms of fighting. Robin does not fight really at all. She just uses her Mille Fleur once to kind of like... They jump off of the Sunny as it's ascending the knock-up stream on the sharks submerge. Like, okay, we're going to go and get the treasure. Your group goes down and investigates the festival. So they use the shark submerge, and Robin uses her Mille Fleur to kind of like make wings, and so the shark submerge kind of glides down the knock-up stream, hits the water, and then they go underground to investigate. So that's like Robin's one big moment there, really. Zoro, of course, gets a moment. He actually clashes with Fujitora, and Zoro gets to slice a meteor in this movie. So, he gets a Kenpachi Zaraki moment, which is great. I mean, like, I think it's, like, standard shonen law that it's, like, at one point, if you're a swordsman, you gotta slice up a meteor, right? Like, it's like, okay, you start off the story, you could slice up regular people or houses or trees or whatever, and then as you evolve, like, Zoro sliced up that galleon after the time skip, but he's like, I think it's time for Zoro to slice a damn meteor in half, and damn straight he does. So Fujitori's there, they clash a little bit, Fujitori's like, okay, you know what? Meteor comes crashing down like it did. And this one's, I think, even bigger than the one he summoned, at Greenbit. All right, this thing is huge. All right, it's got some size to it. So it's coming down. Everyone's like, okay, this is happening in the theater as well. It's like, well, okay, Holy crap. And Zoro's... You have a moment with Zoro where he's looking up at this thing and he's like questioning maybe if he can even cut this or not, but he can cut anything because he's Zoro. So he jumps in the air and he goes, Ichidai-san Sendai Sensekai! And just slices it, and it works. Slices it right in half all the way through. The problem is it's a meteor, so it's like... Shing! Okay, I mean, I'm sure Zoro at that moment was like, damn, I cut a meteor, yeah! Wait! Luckily, Mihawk arrives there at that moment, and Mihawk just kind of takes out Yoru and just like the meteor just gets shredded into like little cubes at that point. You know, Mihawk just like, alright, good job, Zoro. And there's a moment where Mihawk and Zoro kind of look at each other, and Mihawk, very briefly, Mihawk is just kind of like... just kind of smiles over at Zoro, and they have like a master-student kind of... You know, like... There's still a long way for you. Like, Mihawk's proud of him. He's just like, my student cut a meteor in half. You got a long way to go, but... Damn, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Zoro. Yeah, so that was a nice moment where Mihawk got to witness Zoro slice a meteor in half, okay? And then Zoro got to witness him cube it, okay? But alright. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with the Marines right now, like just beyond Smoker and Tashigi infiltrating the festival, because we actually saw that like in the, you know, character artwork, you know, like Smoker and Tashigi dressed up like pirates, right? So the Marines figure out what's going on with this festival, as you would probably figure, like, hey, a bunch of random pirates are all gathering together at one island. Maybe that's something, you know, because Festa at the beginning of the festival is just like, you're all pirates, you know, there's no rules here except for one rule, you know, you can rob, you can do all that crap, you're pirates, but the one thing you can't do is you can't tell the Marines about this festival, right? It's just like, you don't need to tell the Marines about the festival. It's just like, all of the supernovas at once are gathering in one location. That's not going to arouse any suspicions from the Marines whatsoever. The Marines are just going to be like, slow day today, huh? Yeah, slow day. There's no pirates anywhere. It's all like they all went off and did something. Yeah, but it's impossible. Like you're saying there might be like some festival, carnival for all the pirates in the world? That's ridiculous. Meanwhile, off in the distance, fireworks are going off. Woo! Like they're shooting fireworks into the sky that has like the Straw Hats, Jolly Rogers and everything. I'm just like, okay, there's no way the Marines could possibly figure this out. They're gonna have to send in some undercover agents to make sure they know what's going on here, right? So the Marines, of course, figure out what's going on here. And, you know, to their credit, you know, they bring out the big guns for this, all right? They send a whole fleet of battleships. Momonga's there, which is awesome. They send, like, Hina and Kobe's there. A lot of the vice admirals are there. They send 2 admirals to this. They send Kizaru and Fujitora. So it's like, holy crap, like this is the reaction you would figure. Like, hey, an entire island is filled with like having a festival for all these pirates and all these members of the worst generation are there and everything. So maybe we should try to send that to lock that down. So they initially just go and kind of form a barricade around the island, and they're attempting to get on the island themselves. Eventually, they just do a buster call to try to eliminate Bullet, because Bullet gets huge. Even, I'll be honest with you, like, even after Bullet becomes like a kaiju, they're like, we need to eliminate him, use the buster call, and I'm like, I don't even think a buster call is going to be enough to take this guy down, because the size of this dude when he goes into his giant form, like, you might think, like, the buster call, it's really impressive because it just, you know, bombards an island mercilessly with cannon fire until it, like, eventually burns down to the ground, but this guy is pretty damn big. This thing is, this mech is so huge, it really does seem like he could just take his one hand and just sweep it through the water, and he would just, like, wipe out a fleet of ships like that. So anyway, let's get to the fights now, though, okay? Because that's kind of more endgame related stuff to the movie. But let's start with the fights. Okay, so the first fight we have with Bullet. The supernovas all go up against him. Usopp originally, like, Buggy finds the chest, and then the island explodes. Usopp grabs it when they land, and then Bullet appears behind Usopp, and then he beats the ever-loving crap out of him. and he's holding up Usopp like he has his head between his thumb and his forefinger, and he looks like he could just like squeeze it and just like pop Usopp's head like a freaking pimple. All right, but he's just picking up Usopp's like bloodied body, and he's just like, he couldn't even hold on to a single treasure chest. This trash doesn't even deserve to be called himself a pirate. Throws him on the ground. Luffy, of course, gets pissed at that. He's just like, hey, okay, you're gonna beat up my crewmates. All right, well, I hope you're prepared for what's gonna go down here. Bullet picks up the treasure chest, and he's just like, oh, come and get it. If you're pirates, you can get this, right? So, I thought the way that this was going to be structured at first, because I knew all the supernovas were going to be in this movie. So I thought, like, all right, we're going to maybe have a first fight where the supernovas all get curb stomped, including Luffy. And then we're going to have a second fight later in the movie where the supernovas all join together and try to work together, and they manage to take down Bullet. That is not what happens. That does happen in the sense of, like, you know, they first try to go on one-on-one because they don't really get along together. The supernovas do not work as a unit. They're not trained in that regard. They don't do that, right? They're all separate pirates, all trying to get to the Laugh Tale, all trying to get to the One Piece at once. Like, Luffy and Law, they have an alliance and everything, but Law's not there at this particular battle quite yet, okay? So it's all of the worst generation minus Blackbeard and Law. Blackbeard, by the way, does appear in this movie at the very beginning, and even Blackbeard, when he sees Douglas Bullet in his cell, he's just like, okay, take all the other ones, like San Juan and Vasco Shot and Katarina Devon, take all them guys, leave him alone, don't even dare. Blackbeard does look noticeably terrified for a moment when he looks in Bullet's cell, and he's like kind of like a look of like, how the hell did they even manage to keep him down here, seriously, what the hell? And so Blackbeard's like, let's grab up our men and get the hell out of here. So that's all that Blackbeard appears in the movie. But yeah, Blackbeard and Law are not there. All the other members of the Worst Generation are there, okay? So at first, they try to take down Bullet on their own. You have Apu, you know, using his blast attacks, like his like drum beats thing, and they're causing explosions all over Bullet's body, but he just like, rushes up, and pretty much everything ends by him just beating everybody down. This fight starts with like Luffy going in first, because he's Luffy. He goes in first, right? Kid and Killer are right behind Luffy, and it's like, you know, Straw Hat, we're gonna be the ones to take him down. In the next 5 seconds, Bullet takes out Luffy, Kid, and Killer. It's insane. Like, Luffy charges in, Bullet just boom! And then before Killer and Kid could even jump in, Bullet, like, freaking Shumpos behind them, grabs their heads, and just boom! Smacks Killer and Kid's heads together like a freaking cymbal and just knocks them on the ground, and he starts going after everybody else. The fights in this movie, very fast-paced, very quick, zipping around and stuff, so kind of remind me of Broly in that regard there. You know, all of the Worst Generation show off their famous moves that we've seen so far in the story. You had a moment where Beiji goes into Big Father. He's like, get out of my way. He goes into Big Father, starts launching all the cannonballs. Bullet is like going into bullet time. The cannonballs are coming at him, and there's a scene where he's just like, bing, bing, bing. He's like taking the cannonballs and just knocking them away with his fists. You know, just stomping toward freaking Beiji's Big Father, jumps up and just punches him straight in his castle stomach. That knocks him away. Bonnie appears and tries to turn him into a child. That does not go over well. Oh, by the way, yeah, Bonnie apparently also has the power to summon doves now. That was something, like a bunch of these, like Bullets, like he's defending off all these different attacks from all these different angles and stuff, and then all of a sudden freaking doves just appear, and I'm just like, what is this freaking Magic Man from, you know, that anime with the Magic Senpai or something? Like, what's going on here? Like, or Magic Man from One Punch Man, I guess. Like, who has the dove power? Freaking Bonnie appears out of nowhere and just like, I'm gonna turn you into a child, and tries to touch him, but that doesn't go over too well. Bonnie actually gets it really bad. Like, he doesn't go easy on Bonnie just because she's like the only female in the Supernovas. Like, he grabs Bonnie and just straight into the ground. So damn. I'm assuming what happened with the doves though is because her ability is to either rapidly age or rapidly de-age organic life. I think what she probably does is maybe she keeps like a bunch of like eggs on her, and then if she wants a distraction, she takes these eggs and throws them and rapidly ages them so they all hatch into fully grown doves, and they like distract the opponent, which that's an interesting way to use your power if that is really what happened. But yeah, Bonnie gets beaten down, Drake goes into his Allosaur form and is like, Rrr! He goes over and he just bites into Bullet, like he's just stampeding freaking... Roll credits, stampeding toward freaking Bullet, all Jurassic Park, and he just like, at the last minute, he just gets down low and just bites his jaws like right into Bullet and just Boo! Doesn't even do anything. Later on, when they are, like, because they all get beaten down individually, and then they all get back up for round 2, and they're like, all right, round 2, let's see if we can kind of work together now. Like, the Supernovas are going to do some tag team work, some impromptu work here to try to take this guy down, because they all realize at the same time, like, unless they take this guy down, they're screwed. So you have a really cool scene where Drake comes back and he wraps his tail around Bullet and restrains him, while Arouge goes into his, like, divine retribution, and just this giant fist just punches straight into Bullet, and he gets sent flying. Even Apu uses his drum beats, and that knocks him down a little bit there. And then finally you have this whole thing ending with Luffy going into Snake Man and just releasing, pretty much everything he did against Katakuri, he does against Bullet here at the end of this one fight, okay? He goes and he does Black Mamba, he does Jet Culverian, he ends it out with King Cobra, his final attack, King Cobra against him. And Bullet gets knocked back, and he gets up, and he rips off his clothes, of course. His clothes are all damaged, and he's just walking for him. He's like, oh, is that all you got? And so at that point, they're like, oh, damn. Yeah, kinda. He's like, is that all you got? I'm like, yes? do we get a mulligan? Like, what's going on here? All right, so yeah, that fight ends at that point. Also, he goes into his giant mech form at that moment. He combines with his ship, and he just starts leveling the crap out of all of the Supernovas. And yeah, that's the Supernovas. They do appear later on in the movie, but they don't all team up at the end to take on Bullet again. Okay, so that's like the first, major fight with this guy. He wipes the floor with all of the worst generation, essentially. So that's a pretty good introduction there. Right? So the rest of this movie, I'll be honest with you, Bullet, for most of this movie, after he transforms into the giant kaiju, because he goes into like a regular mech suit, which is like his regular devil fruit powers, and then he uses his awakened powers to turn into the kaiju. For like a good chunk of this movie, while people are running around and like, they're going underground and they're figuring out like the paperwork, like the deep undergrounds of the festival, trying to figure out there, Sabo eventually shows up, Crocodile's there, Crocodile shows up, is like, Miss All Sunday, how have you been today? And then him and Law, they're trying to figure out a plan to take him down. The Marines are surrounding the island. Pretty much while all that's going on, Bullet is just standing still as this giant mountain mech. And there's a reason why he's doing it. He's waiting for the Buster Call to be summoned, because that's how they captured him the first time. They had to summon a Buster Call to bring Bullet in the first time. So he's waiting for them to summon the Buster Call, and so he can defeat the Buster Call at his full power, and then he's like, I'll take on the Yonko next. Which, by the way, how come the Yonko didn't show up to this festival? Oh, I know. Probably because they weren't stupid. Because you figure, like, even if they weren't invited to the festival, the information network of Big Mom and Kaido, they would definitely know that the festival's going on and where it was going. And I mean, I know this is a movie, so you don't want to get canon stuff involved too much, because it's just like, it doesn't make any sense in the context of the movie or anything. But Drake is like, he's under Kaido at this point, so wouldn't he tell Kaido, Beiji had ties to Big Mom, and, I know it's canon, so there's no way, but it's just like, there's simply no way that all of the pirates of the world could gather together at one place in one island, all the major pirates anyway, and the Yonko would not be at least aware of this, right? So I just have a thought that, like, they got information, like Big Mom and Kaido and Shanks and Blackbeard, they all got, like, intel, like, this pirate festival was going on, and they all immediately looked at it, and because they're all not stupid, and they all look at it and they're like, okay, this is obviously a trap. Anybody that goes to this is an idiot. Anybody that goes to this festival is going to get Buster called into oblivion. The Marines are going to find out about this, or the person running the festival is going to be a double cross you all. Like, there's no way we're going to this. And obviously the reason why the Yonko don't get involved here is because then that would throw a whole wrench in it. Like, what are they going to do? Because if the Yonko arrive, you would either have to do it one of two ways in that regard. You would either have, like, Kaido and Big Mom and Shanks and Blackbeard show up and just wipe out Bullet on their own, which that would be pretty cool to see, but Luffy has to defeat the main villain, so you can't do that. Or you would have to have Bullet take out the Yonko, which there's reasons that can't happen. So I think that's the reason they just decided, all right, yeah, 20th anniversary, big event. We're bringing back the demon heir of Roger's crew, Douglas Bullet. All the Supernovas are going to be there and everything. We're bringing back Crocodile. Sabo's going to be there. Lucci's there as well. Mihawk's there. Hancock's there. Buggy's there. But we gotta draw the line at some place. You know, we can't just say, like, alright, so, you know, we have all the Yonko then show up. Although that, you know what? Look, this is just my opinion. It's fine if you don't share it. But it's like, I would be okay if Luffy did not have to defeat the main villain at the end of every movie. I know that's what the movie is. Like, the big bad villain in the movie, main character Luffy rises to the challenge and defeats him. I know, that's the formula. That's how it always has to say. I'm just saying, personally, that if, like, Shanks showed up and sliced Bullet in half, I would not be upset with that in the slightest. I'd actually be kind of cool with that, right? Like, wouldn't you be, kinda? You know, like, so, maybe you weren't, but it's fine. It's kind of like how, in the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter, you have Meruem, who's the big bad of the entire arc. Well, you know, he's not a villain per se, but he's, like, the strongest enemy, right? He's like, is Gon gonna defeat him? Like, no! Like, no! Like, that's not how it went. And it's like, I actually really like how it went at the end of the day with that arc. It's just like, it's okay, you know? But anyway, the way that he defeats him is pretty damn adrenaline boosting, so, okay. So, I'm trying to think whatever, I'm trying to cover other stuff before we get into the final battle of the movie. I'm trying to figure, you know, what's going on here. You know, like, if you're going to the movie to try to maybe figure out more deep, dark secrets about, like, the Roger crew or something, you know, I thought we were going to get a lot more flashbacks with Roger, honestly. I thought we were. I thought we were going to get, like, a few more flashbacks with Roger and his crew and the dynamic, and the flashbacks we get are really, like, one scene, and it's, like, just Roger, like I said, staring down Bullet, and, like, I'll fight you anytime, Bullet, and that's it. And that's really it. Oh, no, there's one more scene at the very end. There's one more scene at the very end that kind of ties back into how the Eternal Pose even got there to begin with. And that's it, though. We don't really get much backstory involving Roger or anything like that, so that sucks. But yeah, with that being said, you know, with Zoro kiting a meteor and clashing with Fujitora, with Mihawk being there, with Buggy and his antics, you know, Sanji clashes with Smoker. Smoker, he's, like, freaked out when they tell him about the Buster Call, because he's like, wait, what? They're doing what? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna get going. I gotta figure out what's going on here, right? We get into the final battle here, okay? So who's gonna take down Bullet? Who could possibly take down this giant mountain dude? Alright, so, we got Luffy, obviously. We got Law, because Law kind of wasn't present in the first fight, so we have to include Law there. Sabo shows up as the representative of the Revolutionary Army. Crocodile shows up just kind of out of nowhere, because he's Crocodile, and it's good to see him again in action. Crocodile's there. We have Boa Hancock arriving on the scene, so she's, of course, like, Luffy, I love you, I'm gonna save you! And so, she's there. Thank you for reminding me, Barry. We will be getting to Boa Hancock momentarily. We also have Buggy. Buggy is present. Rob Lucci is there, but Lucci does not partake in the final battle. He's just kind of there observing. Although Lucci, I think, does help out at one point. Yeah, he slices off the arm of the thing at one point, so Lucci's there, but Lucci doesn't get... There's a really cool moment in the movie where, like, Sabo and Smoker's there as well. Sabo, Smoker, Crocodile, Hancock, Buggy, Luffy, they're all kind of standing around in a circle, and it's just like, alright, let's, like, go team, let's do this! You know, let's work together and do this. Lucci helps out in the battle, but he's not part of that group. It wouldn't make any sense for him to be there, too. Lucci's really not a team player in that regard, right? So, Lucci's just kind of off to the side, just watching him from another angle, and he does assist at one point, but, he doesn't, like, partake in the group, okay? I don't even know if the rest of the group even know he's there, outside of Buggy and the other ones that actually saw him, okay? So... the final battle kicks up. Law has an idea. Law's like, alright, so here's the plan, guys. So what we're gonna need to do... Luffy just runs off. Of course he does. Law's like, alright, guys, here's the plan. Gummo Gummo no! Bound man! Gear 4! I'm like, damn it, Luffy! Didn't even get a chance to explain my damn plan yet. So the plan is basically he's going to use his room and the debris in the surrounding area to open up a crack in the armor. Because he coats this entire kaiju creature with, like, redonkulously strong armament. Bullet has all three types of hockey. Earlier on in the movie, there was a really cool scene where he releases a burst of Conquerors that's blue. Luffy's Conquerors is colored red for the context of this movie, so it's like a really cool clash of blue and red. At the end of the movie, basically Bullet turns into, like, Blue Hulk. I don't think there's a Blue Hulk, but he goes Blue Hulk. So, yeah. So his Conquerors is blue and Luffy's is red just for contrasting colors, and just that's just the way it does in this movie. But he can also coat this giant creature in armament and so it makes it really hard to break through. There's a scene where Luffy tries to go, like, he goes gear 4th, Bound Man, and goes, like, to use a Kong gun against him, and just, like, it's like Luffy is the size of, like, a freaking fruit fly, and this is Bullet's fist, and it's just like, like, Luffy, there's not even a clash. There's not even, like, a, you know, Kongu gun! And then, you know, Bullet goes with his giant mech fist, and it's just like a, oh, and there's a little bit of resistance. No, it's just like he's swatting a fly. It's just, pooh, and then Luffy gets knocked into a freaking, like, canyon or whatever. By the way, that's something else I wanted to bring up. Luffy, it makes sense because he's made of rubber, obviously, especially in Bound Man. His elasticity is increased even further. But the other members, they get knocked around the same way, too. There's a scene where, like, Sabo and Crocodile and Boa, they all get, like, knocked down, like, just slapped by this thing and just get boom, 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 like, slammed into the side of a mountain at, like, Mach 1, like a bullet being fired out of a gun. Oh, that's why he's called that. And they just, Sabo and everybody just kind of get back up. Crocodile makes sense because he's Logia and everything, and I guess Sabo is, too. But Boa gets up and, like, brushing themselves off, like, you know, Smoker gets up. No, I guess, okay, most of these people are all Logia, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, so I guess that does make sense why they would be okay. Yeah, okay. I don't even remember if Hancock was part of that. I think Law was. I think Law got smacked into the side of a wall, too, pretty fast, and he was fine. But, you know, so I guess armament hockey, I guess, like, I'm fine with it. It's just like, man, you guys can tank a lot more damage in this movie. Great. Hancock Scene. All right. I made that video a few weeks ago talking about Hancock's power level. That was before I saw this scene. I don't know if you want to take this to be canon or not. I totally am. When the fight starts, Luffy rushes in, of course. Hancock is mighty pissed because Bullet smacked Luffy down like twice now. And so Hancock is just rushing toward Bullet, going at, like, flash speed. And she's just like, how dare you strike my husbando? And jumps into the air, does, like, 15 flips, and uses Perfume Femur Magna, or Magnum, or whatever it's called. And kicks this thing right in the I was freezing up there a little bit. I don't know what the hell was going on there. But, like, I can't be contained the frame rate. She kicks this thing, like, mountain-sized kaiju mech, in the center of its chest, and it cracks bad. I'm assuming the whole thing turns stone and just cracks. It just boom and just. Now, because of the nature of the fruit, it can heal up, so that's not that big of a deal. It's not like it completely destroys it. Holy crap, Hancock. Whew. Do not piss her off, because I'm assuming that's, like, her strongest, like, attack. And damn, much of an attack it is. So I wanted to make sure to mention that point. Okay, so then after that, we have a combination attack between Sabo and Smoker. They use, like, their, like, white blow, and here Sabo uses his dragon claw combined with, like, Hiken, and they combine it together, and they attack. That knocks off one of its arms. The arm begins to fall down on Buggy, and Buggy starts running away from it. He's like, I'm sorry, Mom. You know, I'm gonna have to, your son's not coming home at this point, right? And so at the last minute, Buggy's like, wait a second, I have my secret weapon, the Muggy Ball, and he fires the Muggy Ball, and it just kind of like this giant arm falling down on him. It's taken forever for this thing to fall, and the Muggy Ball just. And then at that same point, Lucci off to the side uses a Rankyaku, uses like storm kicks, and just destroys the arm and saves Buggy. And Buggy's like, because he doesn't see what happened with Lucci, so he's like, I'm awesome, right? So that just continues the bravado there. Buggy is once again the true user of the Luck fruit from the last movie. So that's that. Just skipping to the end of the fight here, the big epic final brawl. What Luffy's doing while, by the way, everybody else is doing this, while, like, Crocodile's whipping up sandstorms, like, Subbles, and doing all this crap. What Luffy is doing, his brilliant plan to take down, Bullet, which of course works, is it's a very Luffy move. He's just like, the only thing that could take this guy down is brute strength, and he's got a lot of that. So I just gotta give more brute strength, and then more brute strength after that. So I want you to imagine this. The entire time while Sabo and Hancock and Smoker and Crocodile and Buggy and Lucci are fighting this thing, and Law is fighting this thing, Luffy is in the air as Bound Man, just blowing into his arm constantly like a freak. He's blowing up like an inflatable pool, like, and he's doing this for like minutes. You know, by the way, the time limit with Gear Fourth, I mean, like, it's really exaggerated in this movie, because it's like, Luffy's normally, like, he can only use Gear Fourth for a little bit, and whenever he uses a high-octane armament hockey move, it drains him. In this movie, he's busting off, like, two Kong guns, and then a King Kong gun, and then he could stay in the air and just blow into his arm for, like, 10 minutes to increase the arm to, like, the size of, like, you know, a giant, like, a convention center, or, like a movie theater itself or something. Like, it's a huge freaking arm. And then even after using that technique, he could still be in Gear Fourth for a little while. So that's really exaggerated. Luffy's really pushing it here. But yeah, at the end of this, yeah, this his arm is huge. Like, there's the scene where he goes to punch him and he's like, Gamu Gamu no, King Kong gun. And the arm, like, takes up the entire size of the screen when you're watching it. And it's just like this huge fist, and it just slams into Bullet, and it breaks away his first layer of armor, the giant armor, and then his regular armor's underneath that, and then Luffy uses King Kong organ and just starts slamming into that thing. And no, actually, the thing that actually breaks that apart is Usopp. And I almost forgot talking about that. There is a moment here, for whatever reason, I guess it's because they wanted to harken back the scene between Luffy and Usopp at Water 7 and Ennie's lobby when he rejoined the crew. I love that they did this. If there's any other member of the Straw Hat crew that gets a spotlight in this movie alongside Luffy, it's Usopp. I mean, yeah, Zoro slices a meteor and everything, but Luffy and Zoro don't really have much of an interchange here. Luffy and Sanji don't really talk much in this movie. It's Usopp and Luffy that really team up here. And there's the scene where Usopp gets all beaten down, and he gets up after the end of the first battle with the Supernovas, and he's like firing shots at this mech, and some of them are sticking, some of them aren't. And, you know, he passes out again. And, you know, later on, after the battle, when Luffy's all bloodied, Usopp is dragging his body through the battlefield. He's like, come on, Luffy, you're gonna be king of the pirates. You need to do this. And it's like, they are both banged up pretty bad. Usopp is covered in blood. His eye is swollen shut. He's got a black eye, and he's just like, come on, Luffy, we can do this, buddy. We can get out of here. We're gonna do this. You're gonna be king of the pirates someday. Harkening back to the scene at Alabasta when they were fighting against Mrs. Merry Christmas and Mr. Four. You know, so that was a beautiful moment there. And they eventually end up passing out, and this piece of driftwood, this burning driftwood's about to fall down on Luffy, and Usopp grabs it, and he's like, I got you, Luffy, don't worry. And then Usopp collapses, and the entire house starts to fall down. That's when Brook and Chopper show up and stop, and they save them, and they fix them up and everything. But yeah, they really decided to focus really heavily on Luffy and Usopp in that one particular moment, and I loved it. But finally, after Luffy King Kong guns bursts away that first armor, and the regular armor's underneath, that's when Usopp's, like, green stars attack, and they're triggered by a strong impact, and these vines come out of the freaking machine, and they just rip the machine off of Bullet, so now it's just his body. And then Bullet decides to make a mistake that plenty of other villains have made a mistake in the past. Virgo made the mistake, Pika made the mistake, and it's, you never go full armament hockey. You never do it. You never go make your entire body go armament hockey. It's not gonna end well. So he does. He goes full armament hockey, which turns him into Blue Hulk, essentially. And then that's when Luffy busts out the King Kong organ and just unloads in him. And he's like, I'm gonna be the best by myself. And he's just like, yeah, I'm king of the pirates, you know, friendship. Bam! And then it slams Bullet into the ground. And he's defeated, and he's captured at that point. Luffy finally runs out of Gear Fourth after, like, his 8th King Kong gun. He's falls down, he deflates, and the movie, I'll be honest with you, is pretty much over at that point. You know, it's at that point just the Sunny shows up and everybody get on board. We gotta get out of here. We found a map to escape, but how are we gonna get away? The Marines are there. They're attacking. What are we gonna do? And it basically ends with this really cool scene with Sabo going up to, I forgot to mention this character, but I've mentioned her before in other videos, at the One Piece Tower in Japan, like the actual event, the One Piece Tower. there's a character that Oda created specifically for that event. So if you go to Japan, which I would like to one day, and you go to the One Piece Tower, you'll see this character. Her name's Anne, and she has the power of the vision fruit. She has the ability to look at any image, and she can project a lifelike image, like any size that she wants, right? So she looks at an image of the Vegapunk's dragon from Punk Hazard, and she makes the giant dragon appear. And so that's her devil fruit ability. And so she's there too. Sabo kind of rescues the civilians on the island. The Revolutionary Army are there, Morley's there, and everything. They get like one scene. And there's a moment where Sabo shows her a picture of Ace, and he's like, can you visualize this guy? And so the movie ends, like the ending credits begin to play when Sabo and like a projection, like hologram of Ace appear, and Sabo uses his fire powers to make these two waves of fire in the ocean, and these two like trails of fire, kind of like how like when Robin was leaving Ohara, how Aokiji made those little lines of ice, and so the giant, great walls of fire appear, and so it's just like a straight shot for the Sunny to escape, so the Marine ships can't get into that one area. I don't know why they can't just sail into the fire. I guess it's a lot of fire, you know. So the Straw Hats get away scot-free. Basically, they just sail through this one long road of fire, and they get out. And then the Marines can't stop them. And then the movie ends. We get a few scenes intermixed with this, with like the other members of the festival getting captured. Sabo captures Buena Festa. Buena Festa. He's there. He doesn't have any big moment. He's there. His biggest moment is he goes on and on talking about how I'm gonna make my new era of the pirates, and like nobody cares about you, dude. He gets defeated by Sabo and just brings him in. He has no combat abilities whatsoever. One he can from Sabo takes this guy out, so it's like whatever, right? So he's not much of a villain. You see okay. So this is something that I don't really know how I feel about this. They, apparently, from what we know, at the end of this movie, they cancel a Buster Call. And I'm kind of thinking, like, that kind of goes against the whole purpose of a Buster Call. You know what I mean? Like, the whole purpose of a Buster Call is you call a Buster Call, nothing can stop it. Nothing. The government was willing to bomb their own island, Eni's lobby, into oblivion with a Buster Call. That's their own island. That's their property. That there were government workers and citizens and their families on this island that they just blew into oblivion. There is no stopping a Buster Call. But in this movie, at the end of it, they're just like, there's a lot of Marines and a lot of citizens on this island still, so we request that you stop the Buster Call. And that's, to be fair, we don't know if they do or not. Well, I guess they did, because the island is still there at the end of the movie. Everybody's like really doing like rescue operations and everything. So I guess they do. They do stop the Buster Call, which, you know, like that makes sense in hindsight. Like, oh yeah, a bunch of the Marines are still on the island. We should definitely stop bombarding it with, our armaments and stuff. But I'm just saying it doesn't go along with what happened at Ohara, and, well, Ohara, where there were innocent civilians on Ohara too. They destroyed a whole ship, and Akainu's the one at the freaking head here. And then also you have, all the Marines and the government workers that are on Eni's lobby. So I guess it's okay to obliterate them in that case, but not here. So that was a little weird. I guess they didn't want to end the movie on a sad note where it's like the Buster Call still happens and all these Marines get destroyed and get just wiped out. The whole island gets obliterated in fiery death. So maybe they didn't want to end the movie with that kind of note. So they're like, yeah, could we get a stop on that Buster Call, please? And Kizaru was the one heading it up. So Kizaru, you never know what he's going to do. So Kizaru's like, yeah, okay, I guess. You know? So, the last thing in the movie, I guess I should talk about what happened with the Eternal Pose. Like, what happened with that? Who got the Eternal Pose? Sorry. There's a lot of stuff to cover here. The Eternal Pose. Luffy ends up getting it at the end of the movie. He gets the treasure chest back from Bullet after he defeats him. He looks at it. They all gather around Luffy and they tell him, oh, that's an Eternal Pose to Raftel or Laugh-Tail. You can get the One Piece. And, Lucci's there and he obviously wants it. They're coming at him. Crocodile wants it. Luffy just shatters it immediately. Like, as soon as realizing what it is and everyone tells him the significance of it, he's like, oh, okay. Like, it was second nature. Like, he didn't even have to think about it. He's like, oh, Eternal Pose to Laugh-Tail. Okay, I don't want this. I don't need this. The real Pirate King doesn't need this to be Pirate King. Even though, according to everybody that said this was Roger's treasure that he left there. Now, at the end of the movie, we find out what actually happened with that. So, apparently, after the Roger pirates left Laugh-Tail, one of the members of the crew, we don't know who, it seems to be just like a random member of Roger's crew, decided to create an eternal pose to Laugh Tale. I guess I guess you can just make one. I guess you could take part of the earth of the island and just make an eternal pose. Like, it's like, I made an eternal pose to the island, Captain, and Roger gets pissed about this, and Roger's like, why would you make a pose there? He's like, well, you know, in case we ever want to go back someday. And Roger's like, our adventure's over. Don't you know we're pirates? You know, we went to the island, we saw what's there, we don't need to come back. Roger takes the eternal pose and just throws it in the ocean. A giant fish ends up eating it, and that somehow ends up getting it locked in a chest amongst other treasure inside of a boat, which was inside of a bubble, which was inside of an island, which was under the water of this one particular island, which a knock-up stream launches into the sky for an undetermined period of time every 25 years. And this was all accidental. And then somehow the legend created, there was legend somehow, like, they knew where to look for it. Like, on this island in particular is where the treasure was. The only way I can explain this is when Roger threw the log pose into the ocean and the giant fish ate it, another crew at some point killed the fish and found the treasure, but didn't use it. Instead, just put it together with their treasure, so that's where the ship comes from. And they spread this legend that there's this legendary Roger's treasure that's located here at this one place. How they would know if it was legit or not, and why they didn't use it themselves to get to the raft to One Piece, no idea, but that's the explanation we got. So yeah. And at the end of the movie, the Straw Hats, like, there was a post-credit sequence. They went all Marvel with this. Luffy and the crew, they're sailing away, and they're just like, oh, if Nami's shaking. I'm like, how dare you destroy it? And Luffy's like, yeah, we're gonna go on a lot more adventures, though. It's easier going this way. We don't have a straight shot. Now we get to go on way more adventures, guys. And so at the end of the movie, everybody's like, oh, of course, Luffy, you're the captain. Good job. And then that's the end of it. That's STAMPEDE. So yeah, that took longer than I thought. It's a long movie. I mean, yeah, it feels it. You know, you get in there, and there's a lot of fights, and they just go on and on, but they don't drag on and on. They feel really intense when you're watching the fight scenes, especially like the meteor scene and everything with the giant kaiju. It's a really great movie. So yeah, I'll be making some extra videos about this. I'll be talking about Laugh Tale. I'll be talking about, you know, Douglas Bullet and his character a little bit more in detail. I wanted to hold off to make a video about him. I think I mentioned him in other videos before, but I really wanted to hold that off so I can make some videos about Conquerors and about his devil fruit, the Clank Clank fruit. Very interesting fruit. Just the character himself, he was just like, I'm a strong guy and my job's to beat you up, and he does the job well. I'll give him that much. But yeah, really great movie. If you're a diehard One Piece fan, I would recommend it definitely. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Sorry you couldn't be there, Barry, but now you know. You have to wait for the digital DVD and the Blu-ray releases.